Hi everybody, my name is Shahryar Shaghaghi. I'm with the Enterprise Risk Management program. Been teaching for ERM since 2018, and about 2 years ago I became full-time. My background practically for more than 30 years in technology management, technology leadership roles through starting my career with Accenture, used to be called Anderson Consulting, and PwC Deloitte. I led a number of practice areas in these related functions throughout those years, and I also led Citigroup's cybersecurity program and implemented, according to the regs, the largest cyber program in financial services back in mid-2000s. And since then I've served a number of functions, including head of senior advisor to Federal Reserve Bank of New York and New York State. If you're familiar with Enterprise Risk Management program as a whole, students are primarily coming from right out of undergrad to the grad program. So a lot of them in finance or accounting or economics majors undergrad, a lot of international students, and so they don't have much work experience, and many of them, or I would say most of them, they don't have any technology background. So the makeup of the program, as you look at it, is made up of a number of core courses that teaches the students how to learn various risk management disciplines, and then based on concentrations aligned with their desire from a career perspective, they either go on the financial risk or operational risk, so they can take a lot of electives and selectives in those respective areas. And on the financial risk, we are very well matured. We have great faculty led by David and others that are constantly evolving that area: credit risk, market risk, liquidity risk, and more quantitative side of the equation. On the operational risk, since I've been with the program, we've been focusing on evolving the technology risk management program. So we've designed a number of courses, and we're doing well with those classes, including third-party risk management in financial services, supply chain management, as well as privacy risk, data privacy risk. And one of the electives that I've been teaching is technology risk management, which is a foundational course back again to students without any technology experience, but we teach it in a way that they can actually learn the concepts and learn the controls aligned with how to protect organizations from cyber threats or technology risk types of situations. So based on direction and support from ERM leadership, myself and Corey Hirsch, who is a part-time faculty with technology management program, and he's also a CISO with a technology firm, together started to design this new course called Cyber Risk Management. And I don't have to tell you, I'm sure you know that cyber has become one of the highest areas of concern for most organizations. If you look at most surveys all the way to the board level, actually in financial services now it's becoming mandatory for board disclosure on cyber programs. So it's definitely top of the mind, and we thought that based on what we see in the marketplace from a job placement perspective, a lot of our students are actually landing pretty nice jobs in technology risk management analyst roles with Goldman and Morgan Stanley, Citi, and this is kind of growing in that area. At the same time, we are seeing a lot of opportunities with major financial consulting firms such as Deloitte and EY and PwC. So that's basically the kind of the context related to why we are doing this course. This is a continuation of IT risk management class, which is again foundational, and it's a prerequisite unless the students have requirements met through undergrad degree and or work experience. Next, okay, there we go. So what I'd like to do is spend a few minutes, just go through the learning objectives and then just run through the course contents. So we actually teach students how to do risk assessment, cyber risk assessment in the technology risk course. That's kind of one of their final case studies. So here they do a kind of a wrap up of how to actually go back and, based on a set of criteria that we provide them, perform a comprehensive risk assessment using some of the standards that are well known in the marketplace. So once they do that, from their risk management knowledge that they've learned from other courses like value-based class and other courses that they learn how to quantify risk, because I can give you 20 different major risks in cyber and give you $1 million and say go fix it. It's not a white paintbrush approach. You have to actually start looking at what's the impact from a financial perspective and other categories to the organization. Are they more focused on availability and reliability? Are they more focused on confidentiality and integrity? So those are some of the pillars of the cyber program that students learn how to actually align their focus, which ultimately translates into allocation of resources and funding for organizations. So this is a very challenging area. There are a lot of risk quantification methods like FAIR Institute, Monte Carlo, SimSeagull has developed our own risk models related to quantification. But we use those concepts to be able to kind of help students identify what am I going to do with these 20 some odd risks that we've identified from the risk assessment. Once they go through that process, in alignment with a number of regulations that are constantly evolving in the cyberspace, then they'll start to take it through different layers of the stack, starting with threat intelligence. This is a very much of a hands-on course. So students actually, we are working with a number of major providers in the marketplace like Palo Alto Networks and other firms to create a pilot environment so students can actually, what we preach, they can actually implement in an isolated, confined environment. So they learn various types of threat intelligence, what's out there. APTs are very popular, China, Russia, Iran, a bunch of other nation states that are advanced types of threats that we can actually identify those threats, but not only that, there are different defense strategies against various types of threats. So we teach them that. We get into like actual set of comprehensive security solutions related to data protection, network security, vulnerability management, identity and access, and those types of control environments. But again, very much more hands-on with example of how to actually configure various types of solutions to be able to manage those mitigation. Then we get into incident response. We always say it's not about if, it's about when that companies get hacked. So just like what we learned post 9/11, that every company has started to put a BCPDR plan and test it on a regular basis because of the extended enterprise, cyber is no different. Companies are getting hacked all the time. So regardless of if you are a small, medium, or large size organization, you have to have an incident response plan, and you have to have it tabletop tested with your senior management from CEO to head of communication, legal, compliance. It's not just an IT situation in here. So we teach students that whole collaboration, role plays, and things like that. Then we get into basically emerging cyber risks. I've had a couple of panels already in this area at Columbia in the past year or two around AI, quantum computers. How are they going to change the game in terms of the threat landscape, threat attack vector, attack surface? So there are various types of like data poisoning on AI models. So various models that we are using to start. Again, this is an evolving situation. Our slides constantly change every semester due to the fact that we're learning more and more. And then finally, cybersecurity is not all within your own four walls. It's an ecosystem. You have to rely on a number of third parties as well as insurance providers and the whole 9 yards. So we kind of teach the students the whole echo. And then the components, as I just described from the learning objectives, are pretty much recap of ITRM, risk quantification, getting into threat intelligence, identity and access management. This is all about how you provide access to companies with 300,000 employees or users. Who is going to have access to what, when, and how? It's a complex situation, but we try to help students understand that. Get into infrastructure security, various layers of the network, cloud computing, talk about how do you develop a more secure application, unlike the traditional models. We have secure SDLC, secure software development lifecycle, incident response, emerging threats, compliance and regulatory requirements that are constantly evolving. And then actually we do cover a number of techniques, including penetration testing and vulnerability scan. And finally, the last slide is basically saying that, again, this is the prerequisite, ITRM is a prerequisite or prior experience and or education. And we think that with this class, we are positioning our students in a much stronger and better position for the demanding marketplace in the areas of cyber risk. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you. Very timely. You mentioned ethical considerations that you teach. I was wondering if you might be able to expand on that.
Right. So obviously, a number of ethical issues related to cyber are no different than other types of ethical issues. For instance, we rely on a lot of third parties, so we have to look at fairness and various type of labor laws that are required for companies to start looking at that. But the hackers or the bad guys are always using various methods and techniques to actually intrude different organizations based on a number of incentives. Traditionally, the attacks were mostly financial driven, but now we see in the political campaigns as well as there are various types of incentives, religious, philosophical incentives, that we see a number of other types of incentives that we need to learn and understand those ethical issues and how do you identify those issues and how do you bake that into your program overall.
I have one quick question. This is really a very impressive course. It sounds very, very nice. You did not talk too much about disaster recovery in terms of cybersecurity and how to recover, because that's one of the things which is really critical.
Yeah, that's baked into the incident response. So typically organizations, as I said before, they have evolved and matured their disaster recovery business continuity programs, especially major financial institutions and other organizations learning from 9/11. But still a lot of organizations are kind of looking at that area separate from cyber incident response. So what we teach students, which is best in class, is how do you actually leverage all those great workings that have been embedded into operational resiliency and disaster recovery, but with the focus of cyber. Because at the end of the day, a lot of cyber attacks are the impact is no different than when you have a hurricane or a thunderstorm, particularly impacting your operational. So on the operational side, for sure, but on the resiliency and building out incident response so that, for instance, if there's a breach to Columbia University, how is Dean Troy, who is he going to immediately communicate with in terms of requirements, both internal and external, as well as the fact that you have to have a number of other stakeholders involved, including the legal, from liability perspective, insurance companies. So a lot of those unique set of characteristics when it comes to recovery are going to be integrated with DR and BCP.
Maybe worth creating a course on this in future.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So back to Bob's question, I don't know if it's an ethical consideration, but I think we're all aware that the cyber risks often involve blackmail and demands. And I would imagine there are ethical considerations that come up with regard to data breaches and conciliation towards the blackmailers. Do you think about that or cover that at all?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, at the end of the day, you have to follow the data, right? So, a lot of cyber breaches that, exposes personal data, PHI, health data, and other types of data. Once you follow the data, you have to start identifying various impacts from ethical perspectives that could be impacting your organization. But in general, if you look at ethical considerations, it's also related to how do you actually formulate the right strategy to be able to address some of those data leakages that has huge impact to maybe particular organizational components and or society as a whole. So there's a number of areas that I can talk to you offline that gives you some perspectives. Even when it comes to human resources and HR, we work with them a lot in terms of those areas because it could be an employee impact when it comes to like confidentiality leakage and things that needs to be addressed. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks, sir. Well,
Sure.
let's take one more, then we're going to move on to our leaders.
Me?
Yeah.
Hi.
Right.
Do you anticipate in the course what the new administration or Project 2025 predicts around governance, around cybersecurity?
Yeah, on the government side, first of all, I have personally worked with a number of government agencies at the state and federal level, as well as international. I worked with Israeli intelligence back in the days when I was working there. But so I'm very familiar, and a lot of our actually people that either on our faculty roster and some of the access that we have with people that, like when I hired a lot of people from the federal FBI and CIA in the cyberspace, we have access to them to keep the, get the most updated information. So actually one of our faculty members is volunteering who works in the intelligence community to inject. We have to be careful also because we don't want to step over, we have a lot of Chinese students and we have to make sure that we don't create a defensive situation for our students as it relates to our lecture content. So we have to be much more broad in terms of what we can cover. We're actually running a lot of our techniques against a database of if it's supposedly allowed to be shared with certain nation states. But yes, to that extent. But there are a number of executive orders in the cyberspace from current administration, I'm sure, to the future, which will be monitoring and incorporating them into our regulatory and compliance.
Thanks.